Hi there, James Savage from National Club Golfer, and today I'd like to bring you our first impressions, our first look at the brand new Cleveland RTX-4 Wedges. Okay, so Cleveland RTX-4, as you can imagine, they are replacing the RTX-3, which I've got in my hand here. We've just got back from the launch event up in Scotland, looking at the brand new RTX-4, learning about the technology, testing the club out and speaking to some of Cleveland's tour players to get their feedback on what this new wedge does. But let's just look at our first impressions of the RTX-4. What can we expect from it and how does it differ from the RTX-3, which we've got here? Now, obviously, what we've come to expect from Cleveland over the years with their wedges, they've been making some of the best wedges in the world for like over 30 years, and they really are about tour-inspired classic wedges. The shapes and the looks that the world's best sort of like wedge players are going to enjoy. And what they do is they take that sort of feedback from tour players and they bring it into the to the sort of the consumer product as well, because what the best players in the world like to see in their short game, they know that sort of your handicap golfers and your decent golfers are going to appreciate that as well. So RTX-4, just from a looks point of view, as you can see, there's a lot of similarities there between the RTX-3 and the RTX-4. I would say that the RTX-4 just maybe looks that little bit more modern, just in some of its styling on there, but I think what Cleveland is saying is from an actual shaping point of view, it is very, it's very classical. It's actually a tiny little bit more compact with a little bit less offset on the RTX-4 than the RTX-3. So again, that's something that's just come from their feedback from some of the world's best players. From a technology point of view, again, we haven't got, huge, advancements in technology, and this is wedges we're talking about here. We're not talking about sort of drivers or cavity back tines where there's lots and lots of different technology that we can that Cleveland can plow into the club. So a lot of the technology when it comes to wedges, it's really focused on the grooves, and then I think it's focused on things like the grind options, and that's something that Cleveland have changed, some new things that they've brought in for the RTX-4. Now RTX-4, that RTX that actually stands for, that's part of their Rotex face technology, and RTX-4, this is like the 4th generation of their Rotex face technology. So Cleveland worked really hard working on the grooves, developing new techniques to make their grooves a little bit sharper, to make them more durable, and they've really kind of taken all their advancements in groove technology and they've ploughed it into this wedge, and they say it's going to be their most sort of advanced wedge to date, with the best spin to date. So what's actually going on with these RTX-4 grooves? Well, like I say, they're a little bit sharper, they're a little bit more durable. There's actually more of them in some cases as you work through the line of wedges. So what Cleveland say that's going to do, it's basically going to offer you more spin. That's the first and foremost thing that they say these wedges are going to do. And again, if you ask a tour player what they want a wedge to do, that's it. But there is a little bit more to it than what I can offer. We actually spoke to Jeff Brunski at the launch event up in Scotland. He's the R&D don when it comes to Cleveland and their wedges, and he's better placed to just give you some of the finer details of the technology that Cleveland have ploughed into this RTX-4 wedge.
The story kind of really begins with the CBX wedge. So Cleveland makes a wedge that's designed for the avid, club golfer who's a normal player. That positioning allows us to make the most tour authentic wedge we've ever made in the RTX-4. So by adding more grinds, adding more spin technology, giving the shaft the grip that's the #1 on tour, that focus on that player segment has enabled us to improve performance and give that type of player the difference in performance they're looking for. So the 4 grinds, I think an easy place to start with Cleveland is the dot system. If you're not familiar with 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot, we have a 2 dot mid grind, which is really our all-around, works anywhere, pretty versatile sole. Moving from that, if you're looking for a little more bounce in a bunkers or you're playing rougher conditions, we have a Fulsol. So it also plays like a mid bounce on full shots, but a little more bounce around the greens. That's the 2 dot and the Fulsol. Obviously we have a 1 dot, a low bounce grind. This gives you the most versatility compared to the 2 dot, except for the xlow. That's really the most versatility. That's the lowest bounce wedge we've ever made. There are few players out there who want to just be able to completely open up the club face and hit crazy lob shots. So that wedge exists as a low bounce option. xlow, 1 dot low, 2 dot mid, and the Fulsol. surprising to a lot of golfers when they hear that the sweet spot of a wedge isn't located in the very center of the score lines, and it hasn't been there for years and years and years. Cleveland Golf has been trying to move it toward the toe with something we call field balancing. So we're shifting weight toward the toe, we're moving weight out of the hosel toward the toe. We're not moving the sweet spot toward the toe, but we're shifting it away from the heel to try to get it more centered, because when you hit the sweet spot, it feels better, it spins more, it goes farther, your shot dispersion shrinks. This is a really key technology in our wedges to make them perform better.
So, you know, the tour player feedback is massive for Cleveland when it comes to a product like this. You know, they speak to players like Graham McDowell or Shane Lowry, and we were actually lucky enough to speak to Soren Kjeldsen up at the launch event, and we just, he's not, sort of using these wedges out in competition play at the moment, but he's tested these wedges out a lot, and he's one of the best wedge players you will find out on tour. He's absolutely sensational. So we just wanted to speak to him just to get some of his first impressions on what he thought of the looks of the RTX-4 and how they were performing for him.
I generally sort of go for around a mid to low bounce wedges generally. But again, it's one of these things, I gotta feel it, I gotta try it out. For me, it's not just a number. I need to hit shots with it, I need to feel what they feel like through the turf and stuff like that. And golf is, it's art. You gotta play so many different shots, so you gotta play around with that club and see what it likes, what it doesn't like, and then hopefully at the end you know which one to choose. But I think that's the great thing about the RTX-4 is that now you've got so many variations that you can pick straight off the shelf, so it suits your game. They look beautiful, as Cleveland wedges always do, and I really like. My first impression was just playing a few shots out the rough. I seemed to get a little more spin than I expected, and that when I listen to the technology that's gone into it, that's sort of what they tried to focus on as well. I don't really want more spin out the fairway, but I want more spin out the rough, and that was the impression I got. So I'm really looking forward to spending a bit more time, and then hopefully be putting them in the bag soon. But yeah, they look amazing.
It's clear to see and hear there from Soren that he's actually noticing a lot more spin from these wedges, and in particular it was interesting to hear him say that he was getting that more spin out of the rough, and that's that all down to this clever groove technology, just helping the ball grip on any lie under any conditions. So I think that's a thumbs up from him. He would obviously say that as a sort of Cleveland ambassador, if you like, but just from from our own first impressions of looking at the wedge, they do look fantastic. And if you're someone that is really into your classical, sort of like wedge design, then you're not going to go too far wrong with these new Cleveland wedges at all, because they are absolutely fantastic. But what's very interesting as well that Cleveland have got with this range of wedges, they've got options that can, and these all come into play in that fitting process. We do hope that you're all going to get fitted for your wedges in the same way that you'd get fitted for your irons or your driver. And now, we've got all the sort of the lofts that you'd expect from from your sort of like your more sort of pitching wedge type lofts right to your sort of 60-degree lob wedges, if you like. They've got the options there from the loft and the sort of sole and the grind points of view, but they've also got the options from a finish point of view. We've got a black finish, we've got a satin finish, and we've got a raw finish, which we had here with the RTX-3, and that's that finish that's going to rust over time. It's what a lot of traditionalists like to see. It's what a lot of tour players like to use, that sort of raw finish that's going to rust over time. So yeah, very interesting wedge. This would be interested to know what your thoughts are, whether you've used maybe the RTX-2 or the RTX-3, you like the look of these, then please post as a comment below. If you want any more information about some of the specs or the shafts or any more on the lofts and grinds, again, please post them below. Now we'll be coming back to you with a bit more of an in-depth out on the course review of the RTX-4 wedge, but we're not happy that we've been able to sort of gather enough data or use them enough to give you any meaningful feedback about how we found them on the course, but we will be doing that soon. We'll get them out on the course and we'll come back to you with a little bit more detailed feedback. But in the meantime, any questions, post them below. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.